Hey, this is Dan Land Pro. I just want to come over here and talk about Bop Art for just a brief minute. So, I got a pretty good response from Bop Art. It's a creative thing that I created. I separated it from bopping or stepping in some of the usual conversations or forms of art that I might mess around with. And the reason I did that is because I want people to focus more on the art or the creativity than on any arguments as far as the history of dance or social dance in the Chicago atmosphere. So it gives me a chance to reflect on things. So maybe I'm introspecting or retrospecting or having some memory, maybe a song I hear. It may be something like the Massive Transit Authority with the L. It may be something in Chicago that reminds me of growing up or some experience that I had that I can relate to that bop scene or that dance scene or the Chicago scene coming up on the lower end, or seeing the elders, how they socialized and how they partied and danced. Those things is just like in my mind, it's in my creative flow. So I just try to share those things for people to relate to those things through oil paintings, watercolor, but it's AI generated. And it's usually how I prompt that artificial intelligence to create or to mirror something that I'm thinking or feeling through art. And I leave it up to the audience or my target audience to relate to that. And it's just something I call Chicago Bop Art. And it takes all of the argument and the conflict and controversy that I had to deal with over the years, really decades, when I was dealing with the stepping community, because there's so much controversy when you're trying to create, especially through digital design, or you're trying to bring something to the forefront or to the creative atmosphere that may have not been familiar to others, to grow or to elevate above the normal or normality. I don't like to be normal. I don't like to be mediocre. I think that we should always introduce new things, even in dance or in anything else. That's how we got to where we are in society. We advance, we progress, we evolve. And don't think I don't know the definition of evolve. A lot of people don't like the word evolution because they associate it with science or genetics and some of the things that evolution describes. But this is another word for transform or progress or advance or change. There's so many ways that we can use that word. So it's just like a form of terminology that you use it out of context. So it's really like a form of slang when you use it in, say, the dance community, where you say the dance evolved. Because we all know what evolve means, but if we want to get formal or act like we in a formal environment where we have to be specific about the word evolve, yeah, it's out of place when we say the dance evolved, when we could say the dance transformed, or the dance changed, or the dance was modified. There's so many words that we use out of the dictionary as far as formal English in describing the changes that took place over the generations with social dance in the Chicago atmosphere. But that don't be my point. My point be that Bop Art is what I created it to be. So I wanted something original. I wanted something that came from within. So if people want to get personal and try to understand that from an in-depth look to me, then they pretty much missing the point. So I'm not into explaining myself. I'm explaining the art and why I'm motivated to create that type of art. So whether it's two people dance or a romantic scenario or something pertaining to the past, I just reflect upon that and put it out there in Bop Art. And I try to take it away from this misconception that most of the art that derives from the Chicago atmosphere or that social environment, whether it was on the low end or south side, west side of Chicago, and some of the places that we frequent or socialize and have those memories, I try to take it from the association with, say, the Harlem Renaissance, because I don't know where Chicago's dance community turned the corner as far as historic value. And when we start describing the stepping or the bopping journey as if it derived from the Harlem Renaissance, which is a misconception to me based on historic facts. So it really wasn't associated with it. In fact, if you go in the history of Chicago stepping or Chicago bopping, most people, regardless of how old they are, especially those of us in say 70s and some in the early 80s, most of our experiences started with something, may have started with Saint something, because the Catholic Church was more influential in us having those venues to socialize in and to learn this dance or experience this dance than, say, the Harlem Renaissance. So people describe it as if it came from the jitterbug or if it came from the Lindy Hop and some of those environments or big bands, when it didn't come from that. So its history, reflects that. So I try to detail, express that in art, and hopefully my target audience get that. Those who into actual art. But for those who are pretty much mediocre or at normal level, or what I call average, we can buy that narrative that somehow this experience or the Chicago experience was associated with the New York experience. Not to say that it may not have had any influence on that environment in some way, as most things did, but to say that they're the same, or that experience or that journey was the same for, say, the elder people from the Chicago environment or the social life they live, it's just a misconception to me, and it's just something that's open for debate, but not conflict and controversy to the point where I want to spend countless hours arguing with people about something that's obvious. Most of the things that you experience from the bopping or the stepping experience didn't come from the Harlem Renaissance. It came from or originated in Chicago. It was influenced by so many different forms of art and so many different forms of dance. I just reflect that in bop art. I tell my stories in bop art. At my personal experiences as far as what I may have seen as a child or teenager or experienced even as an adult, or even when I was frequenting the social atmosphere or the dance community in my more mature years. Those things are expressed in my art. So I may use something like spectator shoes or the way that they may have danced or the way they may have dressed relative to the Harlem Renaissance or something like that, and intertwine those things because I'm into integration. With art, I can integrate so many different things. I use art from an interdisciplinary perspective. So I bring a lot of different variants together to create that art, or to prompt AI to produce that imagery. And then I share that imagery with my audience. But when I get serious about the history of dance or those images or symbols that I use in my art, then I know that it's not basically about the Harlem Renaissance. It's about what originated in Chicago and how that journey was influenced by so many social dances that preceded it, including the Renaissance, New York, Harlem Renaissance, the jitterbug, the Charleston, Vaudeville, two-step, cakewalk. I mean, all those things had influences on the things that we see from that Chicago experience. But don't get me wrong, like I said, those people that you talk to, first thing they'll say was, I remember when I used to go to Saint such and such or Saint such and such, because it really was the church scene or the church socials and the youth centers and like block parties and things that you can or house parties, rent parties, waistline parties, those things that you can really associate with the bop experience as far as the foundation from which it came. So those are the things that I try to emphasize by that imagery in Chicago Bop Art. Hey, I'm not gonna talk on. I just want to come on here and share that. I hope you're enjoying the things that I produce for Bop Art, whether it's on my social media platforms at Facebook, Land Pro, Steppers Express, or Chicago Bop Art Shorts, or whether it's on my TikTok, which is Land Pro 8, where I post a lot of my bop art. So I'm gonna continue to produce it. I'm gonna continue to share it with you. And hopefully you'll continue to support me, because so many of you have been very inspiring and encouraging as I continue to create this type of art. And may we continue to support each other in all that we do, from a digital creative perspective, as content creators, as video producers and editors, and all the things that we share with each other. And I'm gonna continue to do my part, even in my elder years, and hopefully I can continue to inspire and encourage the young. Be brave, be bold, experiment, adventure. Don't get stuck in mediocrity. Don't get stuck in what's normal or what's average or what's familiar. Don't let people dictate to you to stay in one place, but to just accept narratives as that's the way it's always been, and it's the way it should stay. That's not how we advance. That's not how we progress. So who knows? 10 years from now, somebody will create something or come up with their own creative flow and introduce it to other people, and it'll grow. I don't know where Chicago Bop Art might go, but like anything, there's a possibility that somebody might see it and be inspired and build upon it and come up with their own ideas. And if it becomes popular, that's cool. If it becomes something that people gravitate to and embrace, that's cool. And that's basically what dance or bopping or stepping actually has done if you look at his journey from a chronological perspective, it's traveled through generations, and there's so many things to be positive about it, opposed to negative. So I just stay away from the toxic, the conflict, controversy, and creating Chicago Bop Art allowed me to do that without the distractions so I can focus on my art. Hey, till next time, my name is Dan Pro. Peace.